Welcome to Chapter 6, the Everything Engine and the Inverse and Opposite Symmetry of the Universe.
The symmetry of the Everything Engine can be described as the various manifestations of all that is inverse and opposite. If you think you haven't heard this term before, you actually have. I've only updated an older phrase. Some might have heard before Newton's third law of motion, that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. For a couple of reasons, the word equal isn't perfect here. Believe it or not, more than equality is needed here. We need a word that both equals the magnitude of the event, but also includes mention of the direction of that event. Inverse tells you not only an equal event occurred, but also in what direction it went. And what are we talking about exactly? Imagine an object. It's boring unless something is happening to it. Every time you have an object, though, and you do something to it, this object should react predictably. Everything about this object, even all the forces we can't see, can be implied through inference. And in mathematics, when you move from this side to the other, you aren't moving equally to a function. You are moving inversely to that function. That's another reason that word just works better. You can think of Newton's third law as being the inverse and opposite symmetry of the universe manifested in the form of motion. The universe also manifests the inverse and opposite symmetry in both a master-slave and cooperative fashion. So there isn't just one way to break down the inverse and opposite symmetry. There are going to be two. This is what makes seeing it hard, because if you lack the context to anchor it, seeing this pattern is like viewing a fractal splash painting. Think Jackson Pollack. What makes his paintings cool and hip and awesome happens to be the math in them. You can't know where you are unless you know where the borders or edges are. In this way, math creates a labyrinth, with the Everything Engine being our key to understanding any map. We start with the cooperative model, our master-slave model, and the fusion of these models into the hybrid master-slave cooperative model. This might have been a little too easy for our first inverse and opposite model, but you see that this symmetry is everywhere. While the master-slave and cooperative rules are different, those rules are able to exist within this one manifold or continuum. This hybrid model is the fusion part, and what is being fused are all the rules which are similar in one set of respects and different in all of the others. How does this help us understand spectrums? This states and allows us insight into how two spectrums can be connected. Remember, inverse and opposite defines a relationship that exists between two seemingly separate but similar concepts by their connection to a third unifying concept. Let's start slow with just one spectrum and work our way up. We start with a loop on one end representing a cooperative reliance. The cooperative rules require partnership. So these aren't objects working alone, but together. Cooperation usually is a word implying higher function. So causal loop represents a complex manifestation of this term, while the term process represents a simple cooperative manifestation. The other end is a solid square. This I call the halted point, as these are about self-contained objects that enslave others by embedding them inside themselves or just stand alone. You can think of these objects as being able to maintain their own self-containment. The lesser manifestations just receive the label of fixed. When two of these spectrums, when a higher and a lower spectrum are connected, all the endpoints are able to work interactively because they are tied together at one central point, which looks like this. In the cooperative manifestation of the inverse and opposite symmetry, the higher and lower spectrums exist simply on the same axis. It's just this singular manifestation for all the various cooperative groups. There are always only four forces. Going back to our lecture on modern emotion theory, we can tap that research in order to get the four emotional forces that govern our emotional reality. We have pleasant,
unpleasant,
arousal,
and calm. To help us understand this alignment, because the neurological evidence hasn't been around as long for us to intuitively understand it, I want to add some other forces up here. This is a universal key after all. Since this is an art, math, magic show, we can also add the four forces that are used in mathematics. Do you know the forces that I'm talking about? I am of course talking about addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Everything you could possibly want to do in math is done with just these four forces. Well, those four forces and a lot of rules. Before I put them up on the screen and align them to this spectrum, do you want to try and guess where they might go? Pause the video and give it a go. It's pretty intuitive. Are you ready to start? Here we go. Addition,
subtraction,
multiplication,
and division. Don't worry if you didn't get the pattern this time. We're going to play this game again in Book 2 when we discuss physics and quantum mechanics and the forces of the universe. There just so happens to be four of them. Look again at the everything engine and look at the four forces. Those colored bands are working from the edge of the equator to the central core and are the tying forces that make our reality possible. In a human system, they give texture to our internal reality, filling it with detailed sensations. In mathematics, the forces take ordinary static numbers and create complex patterns. In physics and quantum mechanics, these forces will be shown to create the universe as we see it, not only creating space and time, but causing them to bend around each other. Are you starting to see that as a possibility? When we finally get to Book 2, this shouldn't be such a leap, but more like a review. This inverse and opposite pattern is the balancing act of the universe and how you can track the reliability of this model because it creates a predictable pattern. If you uncover one inverse aspect of this model, then by making a list of all that is opposite to it, anyone is able to work out a continuous logic sequence. This is how something that might seem initially complicated can be made from just a few pieces. With this first lesson into our inverse and opposite symmetry, we are now ready to leave cooperative relationships and rules and finally explore the physical or master-slave models. The cooperative model shown here with all of the images separated out shows the symmetries individually to emphasize their freedom to reach infinity. With the master-slave rules though, these freedoms only exist within a specific sphere of influence. This is how one gets phenomenal cosmic power to fit into an
itty-bitty living space.
You enslave it, obviously. And it's time to dive into our understanding of that master-slave realm. Tune in next time for Chapter 7, when we explore the everything engine and the master-slave potential of physical processing. Want to learn more, review the evidence, or experience more questions being answered? Subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know what your favorite questions in life and science are. We will keep posting. Visit our website, theeverythingengine.wordpress.com, where we have posted the art, transcripts, and other useful things. Thanks again for watching.